Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today. Well, it's a hard look at enterprise AI implementation. We're trying to rip past the hype, and focus on that crucial, sometimes pretty painful gap between aspiration and, well, reality, especially for C-suite leaders pouring serious money into this space.
Yeah, the narrative we keep hearing is all success, all scale. But the truth, kind of hidden in the data, is actually pretty alarming. We need to unpack the real strategies and maybe some of the major missteps that separate that tiny 1% of winners from, well, almost everyone else.
Exactly. And I think the first thing you, the leader listening, have to realize is that AI, it isn't just another project. It's fundamental. It's an enterprise-wide transformation imperative. Companies treating this like a simple bolt-on tech or maybe a series of isolated pilots. They're fundamentally misunderstanding the mandate here. Right. And to really anchor this mission, let's kick off with maybe the most counterintuitive finding from the research we looked at. Nearly all surveyed companies, like 99%, are engaged in integrating or scaling AI. And get this, 72% report stalled integration across most business initiatives. I mean, that sounds like a massive success story, doesn't it?
It really does on the surface. Until you see the next number. Despite all that deployment, all that investment, only 1%, just 1% of those same executives describe their companies as mature. And by mature, we mean AI is fully integrated, it's deep in the workflows, and it's driving substantial, measurable business outcomes. That 98% chasm, that's the failure point, and that's really where we need to focus today.
That gap is, wow, it's alarming. Is this mostly a failure of technology adoption, or is it more about management failing to measure accurately, or maybe not mandating the necessary organizational changes?
It's definitely more the latter. It really starts with the mindset. The winners, they're not just chasing sequential incremental efficiency gains. No, they're pursuing wholesale change. They're fundamentally altering business models, cost structures, revenue streams. So why is thinking small, thinking incrementally, such a major trap here?
Because, well, I suspect the transformative vision dictates the quality of your foundation, doesn't it? If you aim big, you have to build strong from the start.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If your ultimate goal is that end-to-end transformation, it forces critical upstream decisions. Decisions about data capture, about foundational infrastructure design, reusable security architecture. If you try to achieve that big wholesale change later on, those fundamental bits, you can't just bolt them on, not without incurring significant, often prohibitive costs and delay. It becomes a real mess.
Hmm. And what's fascinating there is how that big vision fundamentally changes the definition of the product itself. It's not just about automating tasks anymore, is it? It's creating entirely new value propositions, ones built on intelligence. Can you give us a couple of specific examples, those AI-driven business models that are really defining the cutting edge?
Yeah, absolutely. These models shift AI from being, just a cost center to a genuine profit driver. We're seeing three main types emerge. First, there's AI product as a service, or PaaS. Here, the product is AI enhanced. It constantly learns, it improves from user interactions. Think like next generation sophisticated home assistants, or maybe personalized learning tutors. Second is AI data monetization. This is where companies leverage their own proprietary data to sell derived insights or predictive analytics to others, basically turning internal information into a market product. And third, we're seeing the rise of AI-driven platforms. Here, AI dynamically optimizes the entire service delivery. Good examples are ride-sharing apps, constantly fine-tuning routes, pricing, resource allocation, all in real time. AI is the core engine of that platform's value.
An engine that powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. It must require incredibly rigorous controls, though, which leads us directly to the second big strategic challenge you identified, governance and risk debt. You're saying oversight of AI has just skyrocketed. It's now a top strategic priority for nearly half, 47% of all organizations.
And importantly, this isn't being delegated just to the tech teams anymore. Not like it used to be. Responsibility is shifting way up to the absolute highest levels. We're talking the CEO overseeing it in nearly a third of organizations, the board of directors in 17% of cases. You even see the really cautious adopters, companies that haven't even deployed yet, about 30% of them, are already building the governance frameworks first.
Okay, that intention sounds good. But if 72% have already scaled their AI initiatives, why is it apparently so hard to get those controls in place? Why are so many companies racking up what the sources are calling this risk debt? What's going on there?
Yeah, risk debt, that's the deficiency, exactly. Remember that 72% reporting scaled AI? Well, only one-third of them actually have the proper responsible controls in place for their current AI models. One-third. They prioritize speed. Speed of deployment over securing their assets. They deployed fast, maybe too fast, and now they're exposed to significant risk of bias, regulatory failure, error propagation. You name it.
But governance, it can't just be defensive, can it? It has to be an accelerator too, right?
Absolutely. That's a key point. Governance creates trust, and trust unlocks value. Executives actually get this. 46% cite responsible AI practices as a top 3 objective for competitive differentiation. Think about it. If you want to use AI for complex decisions or offer new AI-driven services, your stakeholders, internal and external, must trust the output.
Okay, so for leaders listening right now who might be sitting on some of that risk debt, what's the immediate actionable insight? How do they start closing that security gap?
Well, the first step is realizing you probably can't self-assess your way out of this. You need an independent, objective perspective. It's just too hard to see your own blind spots. This means leveraging appropriately upskilled internal audit teams, if you have them, or maybe engaging third-party specialists. The goal is to assess controls based on leading industry standards before a failure happens and exposes the organization.
Got it. So if that's the strategic risk, then we need to talk tactical execution. All this governance talk only matters if the organization is actually, structured to execute it. Which brings us to how the winners are actually rewiring their companies to make this work.
Yes, the organizational redesign is absolutely key. AI deployment demands a cross-functional capability. It has to be led by business strategy, not just seen as an IT thing. The real value, the deep value, comes from genuinely rewiring how companies run. And it's not purely top-down implementation anymore either.
Right. And we're seeing this really fascinating bottom-up movement here, too. Our sources highlight the rise of the prosumer, which I have to say is a fantastic description. How exactly do companies cultivate and leverage that bottom-up leadership effectively? What does that look like?
The prosumer. Yeah, it's a great term. It's basically the employee who successfully experimented with generative AI tools for their own personal productivity. They figured it out themselves. They become the early internal champions. Leveraging them is crucial because it ensures that when you roll out sanctioned official solutions, they actually achieve operational fit and you maximize employee buy-in because these folks already believe in the tech. They've seen it work.
Okay, but you can't just have complete chaos, right? How do the mature enterprises balance that bottom-up enthusiasm with the necessary central control? There must be some structure.
Definitely. They adopt what's often called the hybrid model, or sometimes a matrix structure. It's about balancing strategic centralization with distributed execution. And there are 2 functions, specifically, that our sources say must be fully centralized, no compromise, because they insulate the company from catastrophic failure. First is data governance, absolutely essential, especially for Gen AI success. Managing data quality, architecture, bias, it has to be central. Second, risk and compliance. Again, centralizing this ensures policy enforcement consistency and mitigates that amplified legal exposure across the whole organization. These are the non-negotiables. Centralize them.
Okay, non-negotiables clear. And the functions that get distributed then, or are more hybrid?
That's where tech talent and the actual adoption of AI solutions come in. The central teams. They set the overarching standards for hiring, for platforms, for architecture. But the talent itself, the data scientists, the engineers, they get embedded, distributed into the business units for better operational fit.
Okay.
Makes sense, right? And similarly, the business units own the rollout of solutions. This way, you maximize that localized opportunity capture. It's that duality, central control for risk, distributed execution for opportunity. That's the strategic design choice.
Let's shift gears slightly and talk about the result of all this investment, because it's notoriously hard to quantify AI value, isn't it? When you see reports citing an average enterprise ROI of just, 5.9% for AI projects, I have to wonder, is the technology failing or are we just measuring the wrong things or measuring badly?
Probably a bit of both, to be honest. That low ROI often results from what some call the strategy reversal trap. That's implementing the technology first, getting excited about the shiny new tool, and then trying to figure out the use case afterwards. That kind of short-sighted technology-led approach, it almost guarantees disappointment on the ROI front.
Okay, so where is the value hiding then? Because that low ROI suggests leaders must be missing something obvious.
They often are. And it's frequently hidden in the back office paradox. While maybe half of AI budgets go to the highly visible front office functions, sales, marketing, customer service, the most rapid and dramatic cost savings are often found in the ignored back office areas, specifically operations and finance. Think about replacing expensive outsourced business process outsourcing, BPO services, with AI automation. That provides a much faster, clearer payback that executives can actually quantify and see quickly.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting for me. The measurement gap. If we're missing value in the back office, it suggests our traditional metrics must be failing us pretty fundamentally. Why is that?
Because fundamentally, we're applying industrial era metrics to a cognitive era transformation. That's the core problem. Traditional ROI focuses way too narrowly on immediate profit impact, maybe measured 6 months after a pilot project finishes. That completely misses the strategic, often longer-term value AI creates in knowledge work.
Can you give me the most compelling example of value that gets missed by those old school metrics?
Alchemic capacity is a great one. Let's say AI starts handling 20% more of the routine customer inquiries.
Okay.
That frees up your human staff to focus entirely on the 20% most complex cases. You haven't reduced headcount, so there's no immediate payroll saving that jumps out on a spreadsheet, but you've massively increased the organization's capacity to handle complexity. That's huge strategic value, but traditional ROI metrics often just ignore it.
Right, right. So we clearly need a new framework, a multi-dimensional one. What are the key metrics we should be tracking for this cognitive era?
You absolutely need to move beyond just simple cost savings. First, think return on efficiency, ROE. Focus on time saved. For example, accelerating contract review by 60%, that's tangible. Second, quality of work enhancement. Track things like error reduction rates, decision accuracy scores. Is the work getting better? Third, capability metrics. Measure skill amplification. How many new, higher value tasks are employees enabled to do per person because AI handles the routine stuff? And finally, don't forget the human metrics, things like employee retention and job satisfaction. Are people happier because the mundane tasks are gone, freeing them up for more engaging work? That matters.
Okay, let's use those new metrics to look forward then. To the future they're designed to capture. Agentic AI. This feels like the next major frontier for enterprise work. Can you define an AI agent for us? What exactly is it?
Sure, an AI agent is essentially a system capable of autonomously performing tasks. The crucial parts are, it leverages a large language model, usually, to design a workflow or plan. Then it uses external tools, think APIs, databases, other software, to execute actions in the real world or digital world. And critically, it updates its own internal memory based on the results it gets. It learns. So it's a purposeful, self-adjusting system designed to execute a specific job or achieve a goal.
Okay, purposeful, self-adjusting. And when you link these systems together, you get multi-agent systems, or MAS. What's the practical application of MAS in a business context?
MAS is essentially an interconnected network of these specialized agents. They communicate, they coordinate, they collaborate to achieve complex, often global business objectives that a single agent couldn't handle. This is really the roadmap for transitioning how work gets done. It seems to happen in about 3 phases. In phase 1, you have standalone agents. Here, the agents assist humans with discrete, specific tasks. But the human still owns the overall end-to-end process. The agent is a helper. Then comes phase 2, groups of agents. Now, agents collaborate to complete all the tasks within a specific workflow. The human role shifts dramatically here. It becomes about oversight, validation, handling the exceptions the agents can't manage.
And phase 3, that's the goal state, right? The autonomous future.
Exactly.
Right.
Phase 3 is about agentic swarms, sometimes called MVOs, minimum viable organizations. This is where you get near full autonomy for repetitive, predictable work. Human intervention becomes minimal. It focuses entirely on strategic oversight, on improving the system itself, and crucially, on defining the system's objectives and ethical boundaries.
Wow. As that autonomy increases, though, the risk profile must shift dramatically, too. Our sources point to a major concern here. Error propagation at scale. What does that mean?
That really is the amplified risk in this agentic future. The main concern shifts away from just poor quality in an individual agent's output. Instead, it becomes about agents making poor decisions at volume, maybe due to bad data or flawed logic, and having those errors cascade disastrously across integrated business functions. One small error ripples out. Managing this requires sophisticated trust, risk, and security management TRISM technologies. These need to be built into the agent architecture from the ground up.
So how do executives mitigate that kind of catastrophic risk while still pushing towards that phase 3 autonomy? It feels like a tightrope walk.
It is. They have to implement strong controls. First, you must constrain the agent's action space, limit what it's allowed to do. Second, you absolutely must mandate human approval for critical decisions, especially early on. Define what critical means very clearly. And third, you need automated monitoring. Often this takes the form of guardian agents, other AIs whose job it is to watch the primary agents, ensuring they stay aligned with their original intent and operational policies.
Okay, makes sense. Finally, then, let's bring it back to the human element. We started with that massive gap between aspiration and maturity. What is the single biggest barrier preventing companies from joining that elusive 1% maturity club?
The sources we reviewed are remarkably clear on this. It's leaders not steering fast enough. Plain and simple. The failure isn't primarily technological at this point. It's an organizational change management failure, and is driven by leadership inertia or lack of clarity.
And the numbers really underline that deficit, don't they? Executives recognize the need. 89% agree their workforce needs better AI skills, but only 6% report having actually begun upskilling in a meaningful, transformative way. Just 6%. How do we close that huge gap?
Strategy has to be led from the very top. Executives must engage in what we call leadership modeling. They need to personally experiment with AI tools, get their hands dirty, gain the necessary fluency to credibly lead the adoption effort. You can't lead what you don't understand. Training also has to be targeted, not generic AI courses. It needs to be specific to roles, tied directly to the newly redesigned workflows to actually reduce employee anxiety and show them what's in it for me. And crucially, leaders must actively cultivate internal change agents or super users. The research suggests that involving at least 7% of employees broadly in the change effort leads to significantly better outcomes. It helps decentralize expertise and build momentum.
So it really comes down to this. AI success is fundamentally an organizational design challenge. It's about reskilling, restructuring, reimagining work itself. And that's all driven by culture and critically strategic clarity from the top.
That's the core takeaway, absolutely.
Okay, to wrap up this deep dive, let's try and distill this down into 4 critical recommendations. For you, the executive listening right now, what should you focus on? 1. Mandate centralized, strategic governance. Especially for data governance and risk compliance. You need this to manage those amplified agent risk and maintain trust. 2. Realign value measurement. Ditch the myopic, short-term ROI focus. Adopt those cognitive error metrics like return on efficiency and capability metrics. Measure what actually matters now. 3. Invest in foundational agentic architecture. Start building a composable platform now. It needs to support that inevitable phase transition towards multi-agent systems later. Think ahead. And 4. Prioritize leadership modeling and targeted upskilling. You personally need to lead the way, and you need to close that critical upskilling deficit to ensure your organization is steering fast enough to actually achieve maturity.
Well put. And maybe here's the final provocative thought we can leave you with. That shift towards autonomous agentic systems. It means success hinges almost entirely on data integrity. Given that these autonomous systems rely completely on unified, governed, and conflict-free master data records to prevent conflicting outputs, ask yourself this. What immediate foundational step is most urgent in your organization right now? Is it fixing your data quality mess first, or is it building that first shiny agent?
That's a powerful question indeed, because, as you say, the answer likely determines whether you join the 1% or remain stuck with the 98%. Thanks for diving in with us today.